The tequila industry is exploding, but behind the bottles and hype is a brutal reality most people never see. Two men stepped into that pressure cooker, and they decided to build something of their own, Ascenda Tequila Soda. But launching a brand in today's tequila world isn't just about liquid. It's about reputation, risk, politics, and surviving a market that eats brands alive. Today, Mark Bland and Nick Soglanich step into the fire on this episode of Tactical Tequila Podcast with your host, Matt Wilson. If you enjoy the show, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it to your social media platforms. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show. Welcome back, everyone. Matt with Tactical Tequila Podcast here. Tequila is no longer just a drink. It's a battlefield, and behind every new brand is pressure, politics, reputation, and even a market so crowded that most companies never survive. For years, Mark Bland and Nick Soglanich lived inside the tequila world, watching the industry evolve from the inside. But watching and building are two different things. And I can tell you that in today's market, building is way better. Now they've stepped into the arena with Ascenda Tequila Soda. And today, we're pulling back the curtain on the psychology, the pressure, and the reality of building a brand in one of the most competitive industries on earth. There's no shortcuts and created with purpose. Nick, Mark, welcome to the show. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thanks for having us.
So just turn it over to you guys. So tell us a little bit about the brand.
Kick it off. Go for it. All right. It's not often he lets me go first, so I'll take advantage of it. Well, you called it out, right? The Ascenda Tequila Soda, sipping it right there. Clean tequila soda, 100% blue agave, additive-free tequila, quality high pH soda water. None of the added frills and flavors and sweeteners and chemicals and colors and you name it that people have generally associated with RTDs. And the product was born and came to life. Mark and I, just out of a desire to have something like this conveniently in a can. And we searched for a long, long time. Obviously, both, big tequila guys at the time, looking for that quality tequila soda in a can, and ultimately found out the best option we had was to go create it ourselves. And so here we are.
Well, I can tell you that I've only had a few RTDs. And for those that don't know, an RTD is a ready-to-drink cocktail, canned or bottled, correct?
Yep.
Now, in the tequila soda market, it's kind of exploding right now a little bit, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it has been for a few years. And I think, one of them is exploding in the wrong direction. And it kind of, as Nick said, is we've tried a lot of them. And especially myself, if I'm not on a golf course or tennis, I love to be on any type of boat. So, grabbing along the years, something that was ready to drink and ready to go and getting his opinion of what he thought was the best at the time. I think you're right. It is expanding and exploding, but in my opinion, in the wrong way. And, funny enough to clarify, I was in a totally different industry, automotive technology for 12 years. And I watched Nick for 10 years as one of my great mates that we met at SMU years and years ago, obviously preaching about tequila and the health of tequila. So my journey really only started, not so long ago, where I started digging into this passage of, do I give up alcohol? I'm sacrificing way too much of tomorrow for today. Went down the 1942s and some really great tequilas that I did enjoy. and, obviously still do. But I think the convenience of an RTD, the consistency, what we felt and why we started this journey was the lack of premium ingredients from start to finish. And you touched on it earlier, like the no shortcuts. So for me, when we looked at these RTDs, as a lot of them are these mixtos, which I had no idea about until not so long ago, because I was reading the package, texting him on a Friday as I'm leaving a liquor store saying, "Hey, this is made with real tequila." And he goes, "Well, tell me where it's actually packaged." Austin, that's not real tequila. It's made with agave. Is it made with agave tequila or just agave? So, this whole down passage of the RTD space has been exploding. And without repeating myself, years and years of what I thought, in my personal opinion, maybe in the wrong direction of something that was really missing.
On the can, it says no shortcuts, and you just briefly touched on that. But kind of tell me, how do you guys feel so confident that you can remain so authentic in a can?
You start off and I'll finish. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's process. It's over a decade of relationships and understanding and knowledge in this industry. You talk about, tequila sodas and RTDs exploding, but I don't think any more than tequila as a whole has been exploding from a number of brands or a number of people that have been trying to throw their hat in the ring over the last couple of years. I think when you see successes of brands, if I go back as far as I can remember, Casamigos kind of lit the fire, and everyone saw this kind of path to this multi-billion-dollar exit, and everyone wanted to create the next Casamigos. And then there were a few brands along the way that you could call, almost benchmarks. And Código did a great job of leveraging celebrity involvement and a quality product, and they converted that into a big exit. And then most recently, the guys at Lalo, I think, have done probably the best job in recent times of creating a quality brand that people can relate to, that is quality. But what people don't realize is each year over the last 6 or 7 years, there's been 250 to 440 new brands per year that have come out. So you see the winners, you see some of the contenders, and like you mentioned right at the beginning, most of the brands that jump into this ring don't survive very long at all. So while the RTD market's exploding, I think everyone is trying to do it the quickest, cheapest, most convenient way. And I think that was from day one when we had this discussion about potentially doing this. We just decided we're going to do the opposite of don't follow the opposite of what the crowd's doing. We're going to go in the opposite direction.
Yeah, and I'll give Nick credit. Obviously this whole thing started. We pulled up to a halfway house in a golf course, and I said, "Dude, for the last 4 years, I've tried to follow you and drink good tequila, but here's my biggest problem. At a golf course, you really lack options. It's, the high selling, I'm not going to name names, sugary RTDs. And then your other option is, the country club pour, the golfers pour, where it's that much tequila, that much soda. And in Dallas heat at 105 degrees, when I'm trying to compete with this guy at golf, it's not a good ending. But, when I said, here's, what I'm thinking is, tequila soda with electrolytes, call them the next morning, which is a whole nother story. And he said, I would only do this as long as the couple of sets of criteria that have to meet the benchmarks. And the very first thing was obviously the tequila. So, I think when you create a product where you say no shortcuts, if you look at our balance sheet or the cost that it, makes every single ingredient that goes in there, the very first step was saying, I will only do this project or this company as long as it's from one of these three distillers, one of these three noms. So 4 days later, 8:30 in the morning, up at 3 a.m., sipping, 60% proof at 8:30. There was big criteria of where the tequila had to come from, knowing his 10 years of relationships, of the background and the generation, and owning the fields, owning the agave, how it's made. Is it brick oven? How's it's processed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that was, I'd say months and months and months and months and months of trying to find homage to the right tequila, which we think we found our vision of the absolute best for our product. And then, without boring you, the whole long story of trying to find the right water, trying to find the right amount of electrolytes, magnesium, potassium, sodium. I think taste any one of those three components, they're not good tasting components. So trying to find the mixture of that, and then, obviously blending in our citrus flavors. That was a long challenge, and thank God AI was with us at the time that could do a lot bigger calculations than we could do, sitting in the middle of a field in Alaska.
You mentioned the citrus notes. I do get that more of like an orange peel on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was the key, right? I mean, I think our go-to drink, and as is a lot of our friends here in Dallas, and seems to be the drink of choice from a lot of tequila connoisseurs that aren't sipping it neat, is, tequila soda with an orange slice in it. And I've always said for a long time, orange slice tastes way better than lime. I think the whole lime thing in cocktails comes back from a time long ago where quality control was a lot different, and lime had a purpose in addition to the taste. It was a disinfectant, and it killed any bacteria and that had been created during the process. But even the shittiest tequilas have better quality control than the good ones back then. And I always love people say, "Oh, that tequila face," when you take a shot and you take the lime and the salt. And I said, to be honest, if you just give someone lime and salt, they're probably going to make the same face anyway. It's not really the tequila face, it's the lime face. So tequila soda orange is the drink of choice. And the challenge is how do we put that in a can and add the electrolytes? And how do we do it in a way that doesn't taste, when I say these next few words, anyone who's had a canned cocktail is probably going to relate to it. How does it not taste like stevia? How does it not taste stale? How does it not taste chemical like?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest challenge. And I think the feedback when people tasted this one, and you've had it obviously, that put the biggest smile on my face was when person after person was saying things along the line of, "Well, this tastes like you just made it.
Yeah.
Like you just poured this. Like, is this a trick? Like, did you can this in the back before you brought this out?" And I go, "Oh no, that can you've had is actually been canned 6 months ago. It's been in my golf bag 4 times that I didn't drink, and it's come back. It's been in the fridge. It's been in the sun. It's been back in the fridge." And so the fact that you still think it tastes like someone who just poured a fresh cocktail was a great compliment.
It is very light and refreshing. And, when you get those tequila purists that are trying tequila soda, or, even just an RTV, and you get this where they roll their eyes kind of facial expression. Did you expect that reaction when you were building the brand at all?
So I'll take this one. I think our first challenge, when we went and we brought back cans we're literally buying suitcases. For whatever reason, he likes to buy really early flights out of Guadalajara. So we, checking in at 3 a.m., realizing, one of the cases is way overweight. It's 115 pounds. So we're buying other suitcases. We're bringing them back. We're having friends, and at the stage, bringing on key investors, and we're just watching their reaction. I think that was the easy part. Our big first challenge was Sip Tequila, which was a couple of months ago, as you may know. And I think, it's a rainy Saturday, in a tent just outside of the Sip Tequila in the parking lot.
It's one of the coldest days in Florida for about 2 years.
Literally windy, cold, and everyone's paid a lot of money per ticket to come on a windy, cold day in Florida. And these were the purists. And I remember Keith over at Sip Tequila saying, "Man, this is going to be your toughest critics if the brand's not on point." And he's a massive fan, and we're their first RTD they're ever doing. But he goes, "Man, just, buckle up if you're going to have some tough critics today." And long story short, we had about 400 cans. They were gone like that. We had everyone coming back to see if they could get more. We opened up pre-orders that day, and our phones are going ching, 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 making the best sound in the world. But I'm still my own biggest critic, and we still are biggest critics. And walking around Sip Tequila, lifting cans on other tables, I really wanted to see if they were empty, if they'd had one sip and dropped it. But every single can, really thank God that they were empty, and the response was phenomenal. I think that's the most purest of tequila lovers that I've been around. And I'll add this. I think you always want purists, and you always, everyone thinks their baby is the most beautiful baby. I think we're very, very open to criticism. And I think my background of entrepreneurship and being part of many startups is you want that criticism and you want to absorb it. I'm not saying you have to take all of it, but I think there are different pieces from, the massive tequila lovers where you can make tiny tweaks. But, I think thanks to Nick, and that's why we're partners, his homage to tequila, 12 years nonstop being one of the biggest spokespersons that I've seen, so-called first influencer tequila. His biggest thing was, if we're going to do it, the tequila has to be the best of the best. And I think that is giving back to the purists and trying to always be at that standard. And if we're not, get to the next level and be better.
Now, and if you can answer this, by all means, I hope that you do. So it's made at NOM 1477. What juice is in your guys' can? Is it house juice, or is it a specific tequila that you guys have come up with in order to, make your product what it is?
Sure. So I've known Alberto for a long, long time. Not to get all sentimental, but when I went down this journey and started the Tequila Wanderer, the social media account, I did it out of an interest in tequila. I had no idea that no one was doing that on meta platforms at the time. So it grew organically very quickly. Mark likes to love to tell people I was the first tequila influencer. I hate the word, but it is what it is. And the first time a brand in around 2018, so about 2 years after starting the page, the first brand that said, "Hey, we'd love you to be at our intimate launch with our investors and our friends and family and our master distiller in Silicon Valley," was Compoveda. And they flew me out there. We had a dinner in the Ferrari dealership in Ferrari, Silicon Valley, and Phil Hellmuth was playing poker. And I got to meet Alberto Pardita, and I've got a photo of him and Keith from Sip Tequila, and that was November 2018. And I've stayed very close to him. And, obviously through the tequila purist world, people are not very, very subtle on their opinions on some of his brands and Cava de Oro. And if you go on the Facebook pages, and, he had a demographic, but I've known him and I know the process. I know his skills, and I know what that juice is before it gets tweaked and Americanized, if you want to put it that way, to become Cava de Oro. And so I've stayed close to that, and I've stayed very close to him. Kind of his rebuttal to the people arguing about how he makes tequila was a Matitenia. And if you want traditional, it doesn't get more traditional than that. The agave's cooked in the ground in an earth pit, the same way they did hundreds of years ago. Tahona crushed, little copper stills in a little wooden fermentation tank down in the attic. So I knew what Alberto could do, and it was one of the first places, and was the first place I took Mark when we went down in Mexico. And I told him right away what we wanted. And we wanted an additive-free tequila. We wanted it made with traditional methods. But we also wanted one that wasn't, there's some phenomenal Blancos on my back wall. There's some phenomenal brands that I talk about on my page. High-proof Blancos that are very peppery, very traditional. They don't blend with soda and citrus very well. So while I love Cascoin and I love Siembra Valles and I love Fortaleza, it doesn't always match perfectly with our profile. So I wanted that traditional production method, but also something that was, if you want to call it 10 is like a mezcal, traditional mezcal, artisanal. 1 is your, vodka tequila, no flavor, triple distilled, tastes like nothing. We wanted it at about a 7 or an 8. So traditional, but still had those citrus hints. And Alberto was able to provide that for us. So to answer your question, the juice that is in this can is not bottled as any other brand out of 1477. It is Ascenda Tequila. We're very proud of the ingredients that go in here. And the thing we don't talk about a ton is that we're so proud of the ingredients that go in this can that we bottle it as a Blanco at 40 proof, at 40%, at 80 proof. So anyone who wants to doubt in a day and age where most brands won't even tell you what's in their can, not only will we tell you what's in here, tell you how it's made, tell you where it's made, put the nom on the can. But if you want to drink it neat at room temperature, the exact same Blanco, you can go to Alberto's. There's one still of Ascenda Tequila. There's not one that goes in the bottle and one that goes in the can. It's the same tequila.
So I'm actually going to be there on the 29th of May.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I would love to try it neat.
Yeah, there we go.
And we, I think with a lot of our employees that people hear more about in the next month or so, and especially Nick, I think obviously the business partnership started with the RTD, but one of our big pillars of Ascenda is we really wanted to try create the most health conscious alcoholic drink. If you can even say those words in the same sentence, obviously no healthy alcohol, but the ingredients that blend with it. And to that point, it was really like, how do we prove the purity and the transparency, which is why we did an all white brand, is the transparency, the cleanliness of the tequila is so good that we did put this up at Sip Tequila for the purists to go around and really, really sip on. And again, I'm kind of crazy in a lot of ways. When, I look for a house, it'll take me walking in 56 different homes. When we first flew to Guadalajara and then drove to Jalisco, he said, I've got 3 guys that I want you to go taste. And being that outsider, nothing like you and Nick in terms of your 10, 15 plus years in tasting and sipping and meeting, the second I had that first sip at 8:30 in the morning at 60%, I said, this is it. He's like, hold on, buddy. We still got 3 more to go. I said, I know this is it. I will go to the others, but this is it. And thank God we both agreed.
So when you go there on the 29th, Matt, you'll be able to see the process. Mark talks about that first conversation. One of the other stipulations was our master distiller needs to own his agave. I wanted the consistency and the ability to work with one guy, one family. And the other part was had to have the scalability to grow this thing as big as we think it could go. I've seen a lot of brands that did, a solid product. And then as they grew and scaled, they had to move distilleries and they had to change up, and it was still a decent product. Sometimes it wasn't quite the same. And I didn't want to have to deal with that. I didn't want people falling in love with one thing and then having it change 2 years in. So, Alberto ticked all those boxes. And, I don't know how much you believe in serendipity and fate and that, we make decisions, but you follow your gut and some of it's, written in the stars. But that first visit we had at Alberto's, we're walking out the distillery. We're about to go to the next spot to go, visit someone, have some drinks, and also just take Mark. He's never been down there to some of my favorite spots. We had lunch at Cascaween. We went and saw everyone at Atanasio. And Alberto said, well, we just bottled our latest artisanal Amatitenia batch, small batch, and you've got to take a bottle home with you. And I honestly was taking it from him thinking, I'm going to try it here, but we've got so little space in our luggage to take back our actual juice that we're going to take back that we want. And I take the bottle from him and I look at it and it's got the brix level and the altitude and everything. And it's got the agave was planted in November 2018. And I got goosebumps, and I'm getting him again, telling you the story. And I looked at the bottle and I looked at Alberto and I said, November 2018. He goes, yeah, that's when the agave was planted. And I go through my camera roll. It takes me 5 minutes and I pull up the photo of us in November 2018 meeting for the first time at the Compaveda launch. And, sometimes there's signs from above that just tell you, I was pretty sure it was going to be the place anyway, but if there was any doubt, that was the little sign that I needed. So, there we are. And, it's been phenomenal working with Alberto.
It is amazing.
Such a talented individual and just such a genuine human being, and couldn't ask for anything more in a partner.
He's a true problem solver, and you get into, entrepreneurship and starting businesses. One thing about him, a quick shout out to your next question, is like, he is a problem solver. So we'll be sitting there, and hey, we really want to do XYZ. We want the best of the best, and we want to add this touch, some of the secret sauces. And he'll literally think about it for 30 seconds, come back, and he's got not only a solution, but an A plus 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 solution. So he's one of a kind and amazing to have on this journey with us.
Yeah, I mean, I'll share something that's pretty, unique to him that I've heard him say that I haven't heard the many, many master distillers I've sat with on these IG lives and other things. But knowing the profile we were going for the citrus, he was able to show us that cooking the agave slightly lower temperature for slightly longer would bring out more of a citrus flavor, as opposed to a higher temperature, shorter cook. And so anything to help accentuate that profile that we were going for, those are little skills that you don't learn, in a textbook. That's generations of doing it and doing it right, where you're able to do that. And, like Mark said, I mean, if he lost the wheels off his truck to get the tequila to where we needed it, he would find a way to put it on the back of a donkey and find a way to get it up to around us to can. There's literally, I don't think it's a problem he's ever had his heart rate, increase more than a couple beats a minute. And just, that's the problem we have. It's very much like a South African culture. You have a problem, you find out a way to sort it out. There's no point complaining about it and bitching, just find a solution and move on.
As you talk about problems and finding solutions, what does a tequila soda brand have to do perfectly that most RTDs fail at?
First, the tequila. So, I'd say for me as the outsider to this, and trying to find a product that didn't exist, and obviously partnering with someone that I really believed would 1000% get me there first step. It has to be the tequila. And even as of a week ago, we're hiring new employees and we're doing sales, folders and one sheeters. For me to actually go and look and find direct competitors is actually very, very tricky in terms of how many are actually made with 100% blue agave tequila compared to, as you know, a mixto, which is only 51% of maybe a very low type of tequila, and the others malt liquor and sugars and additives and flavors. I was actually in Vegas with my cousin not too long ago, and he does the squirrel suits and the base jumping and the, foiling, and all his buddies are the best athletes. And they drink, I'm not going to mention a brand, but I called it, researched it, did some background checks, 43 grams of sugar. And obviously Ascenda has zero sugar, not zero added sugar. We have zero sugar. So, I think to your question is the tequila had to be perfect. And then to be precise is once we had the perfect tequila, and we'll get into some of the headaches that it's taken to get to where we're today. And we're not over them yet, but then it was the water, out of this 12-ounce can, well, most of it is water. So we wanted a really high pH water. Then we focus on the bubble size. We don't want to sit here having chats with you, without being crude, burping the whole time. So how do we refine the bubbles, but also have the highest CO2 count you can have in a can without it popping off? So then we had to go find the best cans that could hold the maximum amount of CO2.
So what would you guys say is probably one of the biggest misconceptions about canned tequila drinks is?
I was this person. Nick wasn't, because he's been so depth in all the bottles behind him for years. The biggest misconception that I said to him yesterday, and I said it to him today, is we really need to educate people. I think one of our biggest pillars is education. Golfing yesterday, people are trying to send thankfully feedback's amazing, but what is the difference between this? And again, I'm not going to name other brands. There's such a misconception that these other brands are real tequila, that they're made with a premium spirit, and then you obviously, like I said a few seconds ago, realizing that they are not real tequilas and made with agave does not mean made with agave tequila. I think, in the tequila space, but more so in the RTD space, I only know of a few handful of actual RTDs that are made with 100% blue agave. So I'd say that's my biggest misconception as an outsider to this industry.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think that's the biggest one, right? The other part of it is just because it's made with 100% blue agave tequila, like, as you know, that there's 100% blue agave tequila is a big range, right? And there's plenty of 100% blue agave tequilas that are made with a diffuser and made without additives, or made with a ton of additives, but they're still 100% blue agave that you would, if I go to places, and I just came back from Canada a few weeks ago, and, God bless them up there. I went up there and drank Guinness for the first time in years all week, because I was looking at the tequila options and I was like, fuck that. I'm not drinking any of those. So a lot of those were 100% blue agave tequila as well. So there's a big range. So, again, that comes back to, I didn't want to start a tequila brand and a bottled tequila and with the other 400 brands that are gonna come out this year, and all of them probably 10x the amount of money behind them, and you name it. However, I think it's key that we can show our bottle and have someone sip it neat. And then, it comes full circle to your question, right? Like, were you concerned about the connoisseurs? Absolutely. I would like to think, I don't want to, talk about myself, but I'd like to think that I have a trusted, I've created a level of trust over the last 10 years of the Tequila Wanderer page. And to the point where there's brands that you'll see a lot of influencers talk about on a day that offered me, good money to promote their brands. And I look at their price point and I drink their juice, and it's not bad, but it's 3x what it should be. And I can't in my right mind, promote something like that, because all it takes is one person who spends their hard-earned money to buy a new añejo for $169, and they taste it and they go, yeah, wow, that's not that great. And it's twice the cost of tequila ocho añejo. And then everything I say after that doesn't mean anything, right? So I've tried my best to, of course, I've worked with brands and monetized my page a bit over the last 10 years, but my guess is you'd never be able to guess which ones I've worked with, because there's a ton of brands that I've never, that I've just promoted because I love the brand, I love the people, and it's what I drink when the cameras are off. And so that said, there was a bit of a worry, how will, my friends in the industry, the connoisseurs, the ones that, make videos splashing Clase Azul and get millions of impressions, and the ones that are very, very harsh on anything celebrity related, et cetera, et cetera. How will they adopt this, or what would their feedback be like? And I just kept reminding myself, I was like, if you don't have any shortcuts and you do it the right way and you genuinely produce something that I will drink, and I do, the toughest part of having these at home all the time is it's all I want to drink. Um, who cares really if I genuinely can look myself in the mirror and go, this is the best thing I can drink and this is what I love, of course I want them to like it as well, but at the end of the day, who cares?
If you love it and your close circle loves it, I mean, what more can you ask for?
All of that said, all those nerves went away and concerns went away at Sip Tequila Fest, because we kept hearing from people that came up to our table, man, I keep seeing these cans everywhere. Everyone's walking around with the can, and what is this? What are they drinking? And the few times I did get to leave our booth at our table and walk around, the coolest thing I saw was our cans, sitting on Solento's table and sitting on, Steve's table at Gran Lagardo and sitting on other people's table. And so they're sitting there sipping our can while they're telling people about their juice and selling their tequila. That was the coolest thing ever, right? The consumers were obviously there to try everything, but I mean, how many other tequila owners would be drinking, someone else's product on their table, visibly having it up there? That was great. I mean, that's all the feedback we need. When you got people like that who know what they're talking about, loving the product, coming back and getting more cans, I think we created something decent.
I agree wholeheartedly and 100% with you there. Having tried probably 3 or 4 different brands, I will tell you that by far this is my favorite one that I have had out of RTDs. And I don't drink cocktails that often. I would much rather sip on it neat. And, my progression has come from, I started out drinking Terramana, and from there, it was on the rocks, and then slowly started to get to more artisanal made tequilas and drinking it neat. And now that, like, I would much rather prefer it neat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's so funny. No one knows this, but it's always fun doing these chats because you bring up things that you definitely didn't the time before and the time before. But fun fact: this little bottle, when we first did that trip to uh, Alberto's place, we bought these one big bottle back. We put them in vials. We rate every single cent going to meetings with this. We didn't have a can. We didn't have a sleeve. We didn't have special water with electrolytes. So I think, everything we've touched on through the various questions is it really started with this. We're doing the bottle. I think it ends with this. And it is a real, we like the word proper. It's a proper tequila soda with the benefit of good water and electrolytes. So, fun fact with these little vials that was behind Nick's laptop.
Now, starting a business is, especially a spirits brand, it's very risky, especially in today's economy and the competitiveness that comes with the spirits brands. Even different, like bourbon or vodkas or tequila. It's all risky starting a new brand. But launching a tequila soda in a purist-driven category carries a different kind of pressure. What did that feel like to you guys?
I mean, I've been blessed. I think, being an entrepreneur for, the last well over a decade for me, I've been part of 6 different startups and, started with 5 employees and last one ending up with close to 400 employees. I think there's a risk no matter what you do in any industry. I think in this space, and Nick laughs, my family, my brother, brotherly love, you're always harder on someone you love, more than maybe someone you don't. And he even is like, dude, you're getting in the hardest space you could ever imagine. But I think that's what motivates me. And I think as an entrepreneur, you have this craziness where I drive him crazy, but I'm up at 3 a.m. overthinking things and what have we forgotten? What didn't we do? Taking advice and tweaking and adding. So, I think it goes into 2 things. One is having a partner like him that's been in the space for a very, very long time, knowing that we're going to do it right. Him knowing me that if we're going to do something, there is no shortcut. And I think that's been the forefront of every conversation, every meeting, every decision we've ever made, all the way down to tiny words on a can. So, I think it hadn't been done, which is why we're doing it. Would I rather be not awake at 3 a.m. overthinking things? Yes, but no one's done what we've done. And I think it's jumping into a space that if we can give back to the purity of tequila, I love being an outsider and being educated and maybe giving him stuff. He's so in depth in the tequila space. Being just a consumer that thought these drinks that I was drinking were real tequilas and they weren't. So I'll end it, hand it to Nick. But I think day one we've shaken hands and said if we're doing this thing, it's go big or go home, and we're not going to take a shortcut. And every decision, I can now see why people do mixos when you look at the financial aspect of doing it the hard way, the right way. So, is there fear? Of course there's fear, but that fear also motivates us to be sitting here right now, telling our story and being at Sip Tequila, the hardest critics in the country, day one, before we've made the tweaks or anything else. So the fear motivates us, but I think we jumped into a gap that no one's really truly given the love and the respect of an RTD, especially tequila focused.
Yeah. More is enough for the both of us. So I'm not allowed to worry or be anxious because it'd be like bad cop. It won't work out. Someone's got to even out this relationship. But, I go back to our, if you want to call it the founding story, right? The day we're playing golf together. And I don't know if you can imagine, but at least over the last 5 years through the Instagram platform and through, the brand that I created for myself in the tequila space, I've had so many opportunities to jump to this side of the aisle, right? And some great brands and some great people, and offers to, we'll give you 20% of the company to do this, and we'll pay you this and do that, and you'll be an owner of that, and come do this. We'll break off and start this brand with me. And I've also been blessed enough to be so close to sit, behind the ropes with some brands, some of the biggest, most successful brands of the last 5 years. And, I guess none of this is proprietary. I ran Código's social media for the first 9 months of the brand. They sold to Pernod for 1.6 billion. Right? I mean, back when I'm on weekly calls with brands when they were with 5 employees that sell to Tito's for, 850 million. So I've been blessed, and I don't ever pretend to act like I had any part of their success. What I'm saying is I was blessed to kind of see behind the ropes on what it takes to do it from the start to the finish. And because of that, if you had asked me 13 months ago, you think you'd ever get into it yourself? Absolutely not. Because I've seen what it takes, and I've seen how many great brands have come and gone and failed, there's no way. And then Mark and I get together, and he pitches me this idea, and I never want to give him too much credit, so it goes to his head. And I thought to myself, that's actually a pretty fucking good idea. But we don't bring it up again, and we finished the round of golf, and next morning at 8:30, I'm driving to the airport to go to fly somewhere for work, and my phone rings at 8:30 in the morning. And I don't know how it is with your guy friends, but if a guy friend calls you at 8:30 on a Wednesday, like someone needs to be bailed out of jail or someone died. And I answer the phone like, hello, like, what do you want at 8:30 in the morning? And he's like, dude, I was dead serious yesterday. We need to do this. And, this is how we do it. And we got to do it together. And, I guess the catchphrase now that I said to someone when they were asking me the story, which is kind of going to stick now, is it was a 15-minute conversation to say yes, but it was the last 15 years of what I've done to know to say yes in 15 minutes. And like, this is different. And this is something I can get behind. And so, of course, there's fear. But I mean, it'll be a lot scarier if we were launching a tequila brand with a Blanco, Reposado, and Añejo, and our only selling point was that it's additive free, and our master distiller has been doing it for 5 generations. No knock on any brands, but there's a lot of master distillers that have been doing it for 5 generations. There's a lot of good agave and additive free tequila brands. A lot of people that use traditional methods. You go down to the tequila and Jalisco, and you know this, right? There's a lot of great places that aren't, the big 5 ones that everyone always talks about on social media. How do you differentiate yourself? And then you've got the brands that are decent, but they've got $35 million worth of marketing budget for the next 3 years, right? That's what you're competing with there. So while you're trying to start this great brand and your product is good, you're competing against the people that are just, buying you out left, right, and center, just crushing you. So there's always fear, and there's, but I think, maybe as the athlete in me, like, you need a little bit of that to get the juices flowing, right? If everything's guaranteed and easy, that's not the fun part. I've always done the most things in my life and my career when people have told you like, there's no way you could do that. Oh, really? All right. Make sure you can see the stage. That's kind of the attitude you got to have. If it was easy and everyone's like, oh, you're going to kill it, this is the best industry ever, and there's no chance you fail, that's not what's motivated me over my life.
You mentioned a little bit about these initial fears and the skepticism at first of starting the brand. But what internal doubts did you guys have as you were in the middle of creation?
I don't think we've had doubts. I think one painful part of starting any company is the behind the scenes. Everyone sees the Instagram, and if you're really blessed to sell a company and do well, they just see the final product in the Instagram live. I think the doubts haven't been in terms of our quality or our final product. It's been challenging, I'd say, more so of like trying to make deadlines and get this product live. When you're mixing electrolytes with alcohol, where the verbiage on a can where it started to where it is today, that was close to a year. With the TTB trying to, list our ingredients, which, at this stage we not allowed to do because it's magnesium, potassium, sodium. Once you got approval there, then you're onto the Mexico side of the CRT and the NP. And that was a long challenge. And it's more about just waiting for someone to look at your file and approve your file. And, I think as racehorses, it feels like you're standing in the gates. You're ready to run every single day. Your investors are saying, when are you going live? We opened up a pre-sale after Ascenda Tequila. People have bought the product that are now waiting. So I'd say we haven't had doubts. It's more the frustration of really trying to get this thing live. And once it's live, then it's on us. But waiting on other people for the success of when and how you go live, I think that's my biggest thing that keeps me up. And, needing to go for extra runs or maybe lift a slightly heavier weight than normal to get the frustration out of the way.
Now, Nick, you talked briefly about this earlier in the show, and that's basically your reputation behind it. And you wouldn't want to put your name on it and your recommendation when it comes to trying these brands. But when it comes to the tequila community and the values of authenticity, did launching the brand make you more aware of how fragile that credibility can be?
Um, I don't know really. That's a great question. I will say what it has done is it's unique to the tequila space, right? I think if I am trying to pass down wisdom to my boys one day, it's you want to see who your real supporters are, is go start your own business. A lot of people are very happy to support you kind of on the outside as a bit of a facade until you're actually doing something. It's been eye opening. There's been the odd, friend or industry connection that's been extra quiet about it and, maybe not as helpful or complimentary as I thought they would be, or even worse, talking negatively about something behind your back. But for the most part, it's been the you know, most rewarding process is seeing brand owners that I've known now for years of other tequila brands, you know, go on to Sip Tequila and go pre-order it without me asking them, without telling me they've done it, trying to get some type of recognition. Again, Shopify is my new favorite app. My phone chimes in the middle of the day and I go take a look and I'm like, man, I know who that is. And that's, they own their own brand and they've gone out and supported it. Right. And I think that's been the coolest part. And seeing, you know, friends at Sip Tequila, become how willing they were to jump and be our e-com platform. We're the first RTD they've ever done. And they've had dozens approach them, but it was a quick conversation and it's just really cool to see people jump on and support. But at the same time, right, I think I don't know you told me this one day, but if you never lie, you never have to remember anything. You don't have to stress. If you don't cut any corners and you do things the right way, I've got nothing to worry about. I think, there might be doubts because it's an RTD and just because of how that space is. But I think when people see how transparent we are with everything, that has been the key. Now, at the same time, we're a little bit naive in that, we thought we could just create a cool product and just share on the can with what's in the product, right? Common sense. Well, absolutely freaking not. So apparently you can't just list all your ingredients on a can of alcohol because that's going to make you look cleaner or healthier or imply that there's benefits. So we can put 43 grams of sugar in it and there's no legal requirement for us to put that on the can. But if we want to put no sugar on it, doesn't matter how many lab tests we send, how many documents we show our production to show that there's no sugar in it. That was an argument with the TTB. So, probably not as much stress as we could have had, but part of it was because we were so naive. We just went in there and every time a problem popped up, we found a way to address it. And a lot more problems popped up than we anticipated at the beginning. But I think the one comforting part about this whole thing was we always said, if we weren't getting friction, to me, every time we found some friction, it just meant we were doing something that people hadn't done yet.
Now, with the friends and the people that are, close within the industry that have been quiet on it, and those that, kind of go behind your back, does that make it more personal? Um, you know, Coming from that end and them doing that when you were expecting one other thing from them?
I mean, what you're trying to put me on the spot here and start an internet beef already, Matt? No, look, there's no one specific person industry wise. When I say people talking behind your back, it was really more, friends outside of the industry that, we're going to other people being like, this is never, like, they're freaking crazy. Like, this is never going to work. Close friends, right? And then, of course, now they see some of the people that are jumping on board and supporting it. And they're like, oh, yeah, I knew you guys were going to kill it. You guys are doing great. It's like, sure, bud. But no, I think, from an industry standpoint, it's just, for me, it's a reminder that, and not in a bad way, this really is a livelihood for a lot of the people that many people look to for and trust for opinions on what to drink and how it's made. And, if you're not, paying their bills, got no time for you.
But I'd say as the outsider here, the industry people have been most welcoming people that I've ever seen, and the support that I've seen, and obviously Nick supported a lot of these people for 10 years and didn't charge them and hosted them and spread their word and has had them all in this room that we're sitting at his house. So I'd say the industry people have been amazing. I think in business in general, which, I've experienced a few more times than Nick so far, is, any form of success, if you don't have haters, you're definitely not doing something interesting. And you use that as fuel. So we always joke, you got people that are supporting us, which then thankfully is a massive list for us. And then people that have naysayed us. And those are the people that we talk about every day as motivation. I think we both sportsmen, I wouldn't go as far as to say athletes, but a sportsman is you want people cheering against you. I always, like to be, in golf, he's 3 shots ahead of me and, you got to fight your way back. So, there's no business or no successful individual in the world that doesn't have these naysayers. And if you don't have naysayers, you're definitely not doing something right. So we've been blessed with a great group of friends, investors, the industry people. For me, have been so, because I came from a different industry, just eye-opening in terms of they're giving us their transport connections, they're giving us warehouse connections, they emailing us back, hey, let me know if I can help with, I've got a lawyer that I use that was really good. Here he is. 5 minutes later, we connected. So, massive shout out.
Well beyond just what I mentioned earlier, like pre-ordering a case to support it. I mean, genuinely connecting us with the person to help with this, the person to help with that. And, we had a legal issue and, shout out to Fede from Codigo, found Codigo, right? Long time friend. Haven't spoken to him in months. One WhatsApp message. Hey, buddy, are you in Mexico or Arizona? I'm in Cabo with the family about to tee off, play some golf. We've got this issue, et cetera, et cetera. You dealt with anything like this in the past? 5 seconds later, here's a contact. He can help you with it. He's the best guy. Problem solved in 48 hours. And that's been the coolest part of it. And people being willing to help. So, the industry has been phenomenal. There's literally no one I think I can knock or say we've run into any type of haters, if you want to use the term, or friction within the community itself.
And so, community, outside the community, is there one piece of criticism that has stuck with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big one is we met some very, very successful chief strategy officers for some multi-billion-dollar brand. And we've always had this look and this feel and this design on our head since day one. White, clean, minimalistic. I think the biggest criticism hasn't been what's inside the can. is when we first started going, we literally got the number one, I'd say, designers that have done major energy drinks, some major other RTDs, and they just said, you cannot do a white can. There's no way you can just do a white can. It won't work.
We love your energy, but can's never going to work. Let me ask you a favor of my friend at this PR firm. She'll take a call with you, but she'll tell you the same thing. You can't do the white can, but they'll help you with the design. Your idea and your energy is great. And then,
we paid a ton of money. And obviously it's, when you start a company, you look back and, there's no, pay a lot of money in different aspects, but I think just going back to our original idea, that's been really the biggest. Before we started, before we had juice, before we had anything, was do not do a white can. And we've stuck to the guns. And I think that's been our biggest compliment, besides what's inside, is the look and the feel. So,
and for those that have not had the chance to sample, and once it does come live, it has that texture to it, which makes it easy to grip. So like when it is, you pull it out of the cooler where it's soaking wet with ice and stuff, it's not going to slip, anything like that. So like even if you were to toss it to your buddy that's on the other side of the boat, you're going to catch it and it's not going to slip through your hands.
Yeah. Which wasn't easy. We went many companies, and you talk about no shortcuts and costs, and running a business 101, you have to look at your cents. Your cents make the dollars. But just that one decision of having grit on a sleeve. Number one, trying to find a partner that does that. Number two, getting hundreds of samples, and then number three, being like, dude, it's going to cost this much more. Should we do it? And the answer has been yes with every ingredient.
Finding something that felt the way our can did was, again, talking about stuff that hadn't been done, but everything comes with a cost and comes with a challenge. So our sleeves for our cans are produced in one place, and our tequila is produced, obviously, we've spoken at length about, and then it all gets packaged up and it travels 3 hours up to the Highlands because that's where the best water we could find was. And I know you've had some of these brands and some friends of these brands. Our product is canned at Viva Mexico, at BLDA, with Sergio Vivanco. And so even our co-packer, as the term is in the industry, RTDs, right? The person who puts all the pieces together and mixes it. Even our co-packer is a renowned master distiller. So, it's not like we get a really good tequila from Alberta and then send it off to Coca-Cola just to a massive factory to get done. Every part of our process has the best people looking at it and is very intentional with the ingredients. And, again, we wanted a product that would pass the litmus test, even from Sergio and his family and his mom to taste, and when they were not, in front of cameras, and give us the approval.
Now, in the RTD space, would you say that it's creating new opportunities, or would you say that there's still room for innovation when it comes to tequila RTDs?
But I think it goes back to our why is, I think, getting the base product right. So before you try innovate and do some of the things we do with magnesium, electrolyte, sodium, I think it's just innovation's there. And I think innovation is great for any space in the world. But I think this one's been lacking more than most in terms of real proper tequila soda before you get, into bubble sizes and electrolytes and sleeves with grit. So I think your answer is yes, but I just, do I want more competitors? No, selfishly, but I think to the heritage of tequila, it's really going back to less innovation, just do it properly instead of being innovative of how not to do it, cut corners, do mixers, add sugar, add artificial flavoring because your bottom line looks probably better than ours.
Yeah.
So,
and your time, right? I think, Matt, in the tequila world, right, we talk about how much longer and how much more manual and how much more less cost effective it is to produce tequila with a Tahona and let the agave age 7 to 10 years and all the above, right? Versus immature agave, diffuser, mass produced, 7 times the volume per month. It's the same thing with, you look at what we do to produce what you're drinking in that can. And it's like, man, it'd be so much fucking easier if we just bulk imported mixto tequila to Austin, Texas and use Austin tap water. And hey, like they can reverse osmosis the dead water with no benefit in it, but just it'll still be clean.
Sounds way cheaper.
And hey, the flavor profile, we can just manipulate that to get it close to what you want. And it's cheaper, quicker. There's about 17 government agencies in Mexico we don't have to deal with. All of the above, right? And I think what we decided early on was we're going to have multiple crossroads in this journey. And at every crossroad, there's going to be the easier, quicker, cheaper option, more cost-effective, profitable option. And then there's going to be the option that does it the best way. And the cost most likely and the time to do that is not going to be comparable to the other way. And we basically, made a hypothetical joke. I don't care if it ends up being $40 a can. We're doing it that way every time, and then we'll work out a way to make it financially viable at the end. Transporting is not a great part of the process. I don't think there's many people that go and can it in a different place to where the tequila's made because there's water in a different spot. But, it's what we wanted to do.
Mark, I'd like to go back to something that you touched on about competition. I think competition is good, but I think oversaturation of competition, it hurts the industry.
Yeah. Well, especially, coming from South Africa, and I don't want to name names, we'd tease each other and you'd bet, hey, go talk to those girls, see if you can bring them back to the table. If you don't, you have to take a shot at tequila. So, we were brought up on tequila was a punishment. And, for a long time, even when I first moved to America a long time ago, taking a shot at tequila was a punishment. And the punishment you definitely felt the next morning with the headache. So, when you talk about competition, I'm all about competition. I think I'm one of the most competitive guys out there. But I think the oversaturation has been giving tequila a bad name. So when a lot of my friends in South Africa and England, Australia hear that we're doing a tequila company, they're like, man, are you crazy? Like, there's no way I'm drinking a tequila while I'm playing golf. There's no way I'm drinking tequila during the day. It literally happened yesterday. So I think oversaturation with the right product and the homage back to a real tequila, that's why I fell in love with the stuff behind us. But oversaturation with what I call fake alcohols, I think you're just killing such an amazing, I call tequila a brand, when you're competing against vodka or champagne or wine or beer. So yeah, competition's great as long as it's equal playing field. Trying to compete against a fake alcohol that is cheaper with synthetic aftertastes, I think you're just doing a massive disservice to something that's so special.
Well, and I like the fact that you say an equal level playing field. And that kind of just leads into my next question is, do you feel that massive beverage corporations make it harder for the independent brands like Ascenda?
I mean, I'll jump in. I'd say no. I think the big brands, the benefit they have that, a starting company doesn't is millions and millions of marketing dollars. So it goes back to my point is if you got a big brand pushing a proper tequila, made the right way, like Nick talked about, no shortcuts. I think those big brands, if anything, helps us because they're educating the consumer. You look at Gary Brecker, you look at Huberman, you look at Joe Rogan and some of the others that have touched on that tequila is slightly healthier and for many reasons why. So these big brands and their dollars can get us to, market exposure. It's then up to us to go in and break through that barrier and define why we're different from, multi-billion-dollar company. So I think it goes hand in hand. We want someone doing the education and then you coming in here with your twist, with your specific niche, which obviously we've created.
And as you mentioned that, do you believe that tequila sodas and
RTDs in general will eventually rival traditional tequila popularity?
I mean, I've seen the RTD space growing in popularity for years, right? I won't mention names, but you know, consulted with some of the biggest brands, and you know, had proposals in front of them to try convince them to do an RTD. 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. Um, some of the problems they ran into is the big distributors at the time. I think they've had to embrace it now because it's just the reality. But at the time, they were actually incentivizing some tequila brands not to do an RTD, because for them it just takes up more space on the warehouse. There's less profit per square foot for them, and it's just as much space on the truck for less alcohol content. And so I think the tequila space, the RTD space is growing. That's not a question, right? You look at the data, year over year. Last year, everything was pretty much down. Even tequila was down the least, year on year sales. The younger generation, younger than Mark and myself, are drinking 40% less than we did. You've got an intersection of people since COVID are way more health conscious. What's in my shampoo? What's in my kids' food? What's in my toothpaste, right? I think RTDs are growing. I think 16.9% up last year over year, sales wise. That's not a question. Is the market and the education going to make what we're doing, right, a quality spirit-based RTD, the thing to do? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to have a crystal ball, but we wouldn't have been doing this if I don't think there's a possibility. Yes.
But they're two separate segments, and obviously we're doing both, but you obviously get into Reposado, Nieros, Extra Nieros. RTD is great for the convenience aspect if done right. We have two pillars: convenience and consistency. And I think obviously adding the word premium in front of those two, this is on the go, golf, on the boat. You don't need a bottle. You don't need a knife. You don't need an orange. You don't need to go get some ice. Someone's not, pouring half the bottle in your one drink. Sitting behind here in this office for, many, many nights and sharing the tequilas, behind us, which Nick's done a great job educating. You can never replace what's behind us. I mean, the different flavors, the heritage, the hint of pepper in this one, different pieces and tastes in others. Like you mentioned, I think you prefer sipping straight versus cocktails. I think it's hard to beat a real amazing tequila straight that's built the right way.
I would agree with you 100% there. It is, and as you kind of talked about trends and statistics, is there a trend in the RTD space, tequila RTD space, that really excites you guys?
I mean, I'll be the arrogant guy here and say not yet, which is why we're kind of forced to do what we're doing. Going back to what I said earlier, I'd be sleeping a lot easier if I'd walked into Nick's office one day. He's like, dude, try this. And it hit the benchmarks that we manually make using bottles behind us. So I'd say not yet. And yet's a key word. It'll be interesting to see where people chase us and how long it takes to chase, and maybe the different twists and turns that they start putting into different cans. Who knows?
When it comes to legacy, what do you guys want if and when Ascenda becomes a major success? What impact do you want it to leave on the tequila culture?
I mean, it's a great question. I think I'm very careful to sit in the seat and talk about, you know, we're a brand that's pre-sold cans and that's live here in a couple of weeks. of course there's goals and there's, things we've envisioned, but at the end of the day, you know, we didn't get into this to go and just create, a company and blow it up, right? It was genuinely created out of a need because we have something we love. The whole name Ascenda is to rise tomorrow, right? We like to stay in shape. Mark has made health one of his pillars for the last 10 years. I have, 4 kids under the age of 8, full-time career. I like to still stay in shape, try to keep my golf game sharp. You know, both of us being South African, we love to be social. I'm a big believer in the person who's got the best stories at the end of the day, who dies with the best stories wins, right? It's not about collecting material items. It's about actually living life. I want to be able to sit back one day, God willing, if I get to live a long, prosperous life. And I want to be surrounded by people and memories, right? Not things. And so to do that, you create memories and you celebrate the high notes and you enjoy milestones. But like I said, I got 4 small kids. My day starts at 6:00 the next day. Doesn't matter if I celebrate the milestone until 4 a.m. My day starts at 6:00. If I go to bed at 9, my day starts at 6:00. And so Mark's story and other friends' stories, I heard it way too often that the pro wasn't worth the con. And they were getting to a point where, wasn't going to be worth it, just give up drinking altogether, which a large percentage of the population is doing. Hey, last stop on the elevator before the ground floor, which is no drinking. Let me introduce you to what I've been doing for a decade now. Clean, additive-free tequila, drinking it in a certain way. And I promise you, right? Of course, some people are outliers, but for the most part, it's going to make you feel different. It's what got me into tequila 12 years ago. It got me off drinking anything and everything when I would go out, and, tequila made me feel different. That's what started this whole thing down the rabbit hole, 12 years ago. And I think I've seen so many people be transformed by that. So outside of legacy, my goal with the Tequila Wonder was to share my experience and the world's best tequilas with the people that I got to interact with. My goal with Ascenda, as many people as possible, I want to introduce them to what I genuinely like to drink when the camera's off and not rolling, and what I've found to be, my best way to celebrate and to do it this way.
I'd say legacy is like these guys raised the bar of what can be put in a can. And we're going to have a lot of people chasing us, but I'd say we could be notarized as one of the first companies to not take shortcuts, which we've said 1,000 times tonight, and actually make a proper tequila soda. You talk about innovation, adding electrolytes to the ingredients in here. I think, we'd love to be considered in the innovative space, but I'd say that's our legacy, is those guys were one of the first guys to create a real RTD, no shortcuts, using the heritage of tequila and not doing what some of these other people are doing. So tequila focus first, innovation, all within, 1 12-ounce can.
Maybe at
Is-
some point, the not too distant future, people will pick up a can, and if it doesn't tell them every single thing that's in that can, it'll just be, kind of like a lot of other products today. If your cereal doesn't tell you if it's got food coloring or not, I know a lot of people that won't even touch it anymore. So maybe we can raise the bar and make transparency more common than it is.
and that's my hope for the industry, is that tequila brands and RTD brands can be more transparent the way that they want to be. In my opinion, I think it should be left up to the brand. If the brand wants to be transparent and put, their whole process, the type of water they use, everything from how it's cooked, how long it's cooked, like whatever they want to put on the label, like I feel like they should be able to put it on the label. They should be able to be transparent with not only their consumer, but consumer in general. So that way the consumer can make an informed decision on whether or not they want to drink the brand. But
Well, we don't want to blow investors' money and our own money on lawyers, and we've spent a lot of money with lawyers. I can tell you our fight's far from over, and I think that'll be a big push for us is to educate, keep educating, and push this transparency. I mean, that is our biggest pillar within our company, from employees to the way that we run, our daily lives as co-founders. So yeah, our fight's far from over, and I think that is a big thing that you'll see from us as well.
And consumers drive that change, right, Matt? I mean, if enough people get educated and enough people are like, no, I want to know what's in what I'm consuming. I'll go back to the cereal analogy. I just saw now that, I think Target or something put out a statement that they won't carry any cereal starting in 2027 that contains, artificial food coloring. That wasn't them deciding, hey, we need to be a better company and do this. That was the consumer demanding that change. And so if we educate enough, we will force the big guys that are doing it the quickest, cheapest, most mass-produced way and selling 500 million cans a year. We will force them to be more transparent.
I mean, that's how stores like Whole Foods and Sprouts all came to be, is because people were tired of getting those things that weren't organic and those things that weren't good or less than stellar, and they wanted a better product. So that's how those stores came about.
And
So-
the age of that we have is changing everything, right? Can water brands go and create an advert and bash what other bottled waters have in them and share their lab results? No. But that doesn't stop influencers from going up there and independently going and paying for those bottles in a store and then sending them to a lab and posting the results and, creating apps that will share those results. So at the end of the day, I think much as it's a love-hate relationship with me and social media, what it's done to society, I think we're starting to see at least some benefit coming out of this, in that people can, be transparent outside of, where some brands just have their arms tied.
It's funny that you mention the canned water dissing and bashing on the plastic bottles, but if you break down the can itself, 90% of cans all have a plastic liner in them.
Yeah. And some of the recent tests show that, even glass bottled waters with certain types of plastic caps have higher microplastics than plastic water bottles.
Yeah.
So, again, it's, at the end of the day, I think transparency we'll keep using that word, right? we want to be an open book, and, I passionately shared how tequilas are made and the ones that I drink the most and the processes and the tedious steps between them. And so it's just been natural for me to be able to share the same thing with an RTD. And I think that, most people think that's nuts. And I've saved and screenshotted some of the DMs early in this journey, right? Oh, well, hey, we looked at doing it that way, but no one cares. No one cares that there's 100% agave tequila. We looked at doing it that way. It didn't make sense. Now we just bulk import it into Houston and we can it there. No one cares. Like, I've got those screenshots. You talk about a wall with people that motivate you. Some of our imaginary wall has people's faces on it. Some of it has quotes like that remind me every day. No one cares. No, they do. Because everyone that I educate and actually gets to taste this and you tell the story,
Well, we
they
care.
care.
You're the ones that drink it as well.
So time will tell.
Now, during your journey in building the brand, what have you guys learned about yourselves?
What's the age restriction on this podcast? Is it
Online, 18 and up usually.
no, jokes aside, I think I think you learn a lot about individuals, spending a lot of time with them, being on the road with them. But nothing crazy out of the ordinary. I think I don't think either of us would have said yes to going on this journey if we didn't think you were jumping in the trenches with someone you could count on, that you knew that you could trust. I think we share a lot of values completely unrelated to the brand and the industry. But I think that's important in business and in life. And, again, no massive surprises I've learned so far. Mark doesn't like early flights. I'll learn that.
Yeah. And I'd say, I've been blessed to give, talks and stuff on starting companies. And I think your business partner, firstly, doing a business by yourself, I think is, I don't think there could be anything in the world more challenging. I think having the right business partner, it's very much like a marriage where, we have great days, we have the highs are high and the lows are low. But, I think one piece of the puzzle is both of us, as South Africans, I went to all boys boarding school for many years, playing rugby and some tough sports and, both of us moving and leaving, our families and living in America is we both have the same mindset and we in this company to do the right thing day one, which, the same whole thing, no shortcuts. So we have the base beliefs we both very much align. But I think the benefit of us is we both competitors. We don't take no for an answer. And the days that I might be lower than he is, and the days that I'm higher than he is, and I think having a partner, we pick each other up very well. That you got to have a pretty thick skin going and doing what we're doing. I think most people say it takes about 3 years to do what we've done. We've just crossed a year, and I think we could have done it way sooner if it wasn't for government shutdowns, if it wasn't for, being in a queue of CFP, TTB, NP, all the different regulations. So, we keep learning, we keep massaging, the relationship in terms of how we can both be better to each other, but also individually on a day-to-day basis.
That would be very early in the process. We went to lunch down the street here and we sat down. And again, we've known each other for a long, long time. We met in college, and we've been friends for a long, long time. And, something that Mark said to me with his experience, starting and successfully, building and exiting, multiple companies really hit home. And I think it's key. And it was, you have to put you can't take anything personally. We haven't really had that issue so far, but I think we need to be able to have a difficult conversation, disagree with something, potentially get in a pretty heated disagreement or argument about something, but be able to shrug it off and understand that, we both have the best interest at heart and it is what it is and nothing can be taken personally. I've seen just in companies I've worked in that way too often, someone takes one person's disagreement with how they did something or how they wanted to go about something super personally, and they can never get over to the point where it cripples the relationship in the company. And so I think having a thick skin and understanding, being comfortable to call something out if you don't like it, never be afraid that, this is going to ruin a friendship or, start conflict. If there's not conflict, you're not changing anything. And so if you're moving fast, there's friction and there's going to be, conflict. And I think that's a healthy thing to have.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. And that's at least half of what makes most businesses successful is having that person or co-founder team around you and them being able to pick you up when you're down and being able to bounce things off of them and, just be this cohesive unit.
Yeah. And we're blessed, and you'll find out in the next 2 weeks when all the LinkedIn's update. I think I had a question long ago. It's like, how would you go spend $1 million on marketing? And I said, I wouldn't. I'll go spend $1 million on getting the right team. And, that's day one of literally this venture is partnering with someone that knows more about this than anyone I ever knew. And then, through his network is we literally have created a team that you'll hear about that, not only do we pick each other up, but we're going to have an unbelievable team that challenges us. And every first interview and every first meeting is like, if you join our company, they take the gloves off. If you think we bringing on you to be the expert in running the books, we bringing you in to run the brand and the communications, like, yes, Nick and I, at the end of the day, are the co-founders, but you got to push back and you got to do what you've done in your previous companies. And that's why you're joining the team. So it's exciting that it's not going to just be Nick and I for much longer.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Where can everyone find you guys on social media?
AscendaTequila.com, the website, and at Ascenda Tequila Instagram are going to be the best spots to keep up to date with what's going on and where to find us and where we'll be. And
then Sip Tequila as well. You know, we're going to start delivering. All pre-orders will be sent out beginning of May. So siptequila.com, get your pre-orders in. We're paying for all the shipping. So besides our social media, would love comments, would love to meet as we travel this amazing family and industry. But Sip Tequila, shout out to them. They will literally package, ship our product anywhere in the country. And I think average turnaround is about 3 days from when you order. So go check it out.
Now, one last question before we go. Are there any festivals or tequila events that you guys are going to be at upcoming?
To be determined. There's quite a few of them. But right off the top of the head, the ones that we, without a doubt that I've loved over the last couple of years and that we know we'll support. So, Good Juice later in the year. Excited to put an RTD in a space which is surrounded by quality, high-end, traditional tequila brands. And then we just finished up Tequila Fest, which is something, as long as they'll have us, we'll keep coming back there. But for now, that's about the extent of it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.